Today I wanted to make a short video detailing short rests and the actual standard adventuring day that's found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you're unfamiliar with anything of what I'm talking about and you want to know why, stay tuned. Hello friends, I'm Ted from Immersion, and today we're going to be talking about short rests and the adventuring day. And the reason I brought that up is in my recent Dragonborn video where I was fixing the Dragonborn race to make it more in line with other races contained in the player's handbook and avoiding kind of the power creep issue with new races. I'm using your words on power creep. I didn't use those in the video, but I brought up the idea that, a short rest recharge on the breath weapon seems maybe not the best way to go about it, or you got to make it, because if it's one action per short rest, that may prove as issues. And you guys came up with a ton of great options in the comments, so you guys can go check out that video. I'll put a link in the description if you wanted to see it yourself. But I said in that video, if you don't make use of short rests, then your breath weapon is only once per long rest. And that is dumb for something that you can use one time and is less, it's like a one time and it's out there. There are other races that get access to spells, and even if it's a once per long rest spell, it persists and it does other things. And I had said in that video, if you're not using short rests at your table, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I did get a lot of comments like, who's not using short rests? But there were even other people in that comment thread that are saying their table never makes use of short rests. Their DM doesn't really let them do that, or they don't do that. Or perhaps they're in a scenario where they don't have classes that make use of short rest heavily, like say a warlock or a monk or a fighter, where a lot of their good, useful resources recharge on a short rest. If they have something like, say, a barbarian or a sorcerer, I believe both of those, off the top of my head, don't get anything back on a short rest, so they may not see the need to take short rests outside of the idea of healing. But if they have other healers in the party, it may not come up. So I wanted to talk about that because I wanted to discuss this concept of the adventuring day, which is also something I feel like most people either don't. If you're not a DM, you probably never read it because it's in the DM's guide. And even if you are a DM, I feel like this is something that probably just gets overlooked, because if you read it, some of you may be saying that sounds ridiculous. So let's go ahead and take a look on D&D Beyond right here. So this is chapter 13 of the Dungeon Master. Actually, this is the basic rules, but it's the building combat encounters that's found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Right, so it has all the parts about building an encounter. And here's the adventuring day. Assuming typical adventuring conditions and average luck, most adventuring parties can handle about 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters in a day. Now let's think about that. According to this, it says they can handle. If the adventurer has more easy encounters, they can get through more. If it has more deadly encounters, they can handle fewer. In the same way you figure out difficulty of an encounter, you can use the XP values of monsters and other opponents in an adventure as a guideline for how long the party is likely to progress. And then it says here, for each character in the party, use the Adventuring Day XP table to estimate how much XP the character is expected to earn in a day. Add together the values of all parties to get a total for the party's Adventuring Day. This provides a rough estimate of the adjusted XP values for the day they can handle before the characters will need to take a long rest. And then here is the, adventuring day, right? How much XP per adventuring day characters can handle. So at first level, they're saying you should be able to handle about 300 XP per day, adjusted XP per day per character, which roughly that means you'll get level 2 in one good solid adventuring day, because 300 XP is level 2. But anyway, for each character in the party, use the Adventuring Day XP to estimate how much XP that character is expected to earn each day. So you can see here, as you get up here, you're expected to earn around 40,000 XP a day at 20th level. But that's assuming here, right, 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters. Now, we're talking, this is in the building combat encounters section. So this is not talking about you doing a fun RP moment or a social interaction or an exploration. This is building combat encounters. So the DM's guide and the basic rules that you can download for free are stating that you should, on average, in a day, when you're out adventuring, encounter 6 to 8 different things. 6 to 8 different encounters, right? That may be an encounter filled with 10 orcs, or an encounter filled with 1 ettercap. I don't know, whatever the case may be. But it assumes you're going to be handling 6 to 8 medium to hard encounters, more than that if it's an easy adventure, and fewer if it's harder. Most gaming sessions, I'm going to say, probably land in the 2 to 4 hour range. Obviously, that's not the case when people get together and do marathon sessions, or, if everybody has the time and you can pull out a 6-hour session, that's great. But as we all know, combat is the thing that takes the longest amount of time in Dungeons & Dragons, and the book that tells you how to do it and how to set it up, and the one that you can get for free for anybody, tells you should be doing 6 to 8 per day. That is insane. I feel like. Maybe I'm wrong, and you guys please tell me in the comments what you think. But 6 to 8 encounters before you take a long rest. So in my mind, I say, well, the party's probably going to be burning through some healing, I would imagine, if they're medium to hard encounters. What do you think about short rests? Well, they take that into account. In general, over the course of a full adventuring day, the party will likely need to take 2 short rests about 1/3 and 2/3 of the way through the day. So the way right here, building combat encounters based on the adventuring day concept, it's assuming you're taking about 2 short rests a day before you take a long rest, and it's expecting you to deal with 6 to 8 adventure or medium to hard encounters in a day. So I want to point this out for those of you out there, DMs and people designing content, that the way things were based on XP and challenge rating and all those kind of things in the Dungeon Master's Guide is assuming, and that also is, I think, a lot more relevant in the older pre-written adventure modules based on the amount of stuff that you would deal with, and a lot of the ones that have random encounters, and I feel like more often than not they put random encounter tables in, but they assume you're going to encounter more than you likely do, especially the ones that are like, roll a d20, and if you roll higher than a 17, you encounter something. Because in that case, if that's what you roll with, no pun intended, you could go stretches of time without ever running into a random encounter. I know I did the same thing when I ran Princess of the Apocalypse on stream, and the party never encountered anything because they always rolled below. So eventually you just start throwing stuff out there so that's not just boring travel. But I wanted to bring this up because for those of you out there, you may, and I don't want to tell you to criticize your DM and tell them we need to take short rests and you need to allow it. But I would just like to educate all of you on this concept of the adventuring day, because if your DM does focus on this and you feel like you're getting slammed with a ton of encounters, maybe they are sticking true to their guns here and giving you 6 to 8 medium to hard combat encounters a day. But they also need to know that if they're doing that, the book assumes that you're also getting probably 2 short rests, 2 opportunities to heal, 2 opportunities for a lot of classes to get a bunch of features back, and then eventually at the end of the day take a long rest to reset everything. Again, if you think about that, as a fighter, right, getting your action surge back and your second wind back, having it 3 times through the course of the day, through 6 to 8 encounters, is going to be a big deal for you. Same thing with key points for a monk, and especially spell slots for a warlock if you don't want to just be Eldritch Blasting all day. Which, I mean, let's be honest, you're a warlock, so you probably are. But I just wanted to bring attention to this. And I had a couple other things here, right? So the Sage Advice Compendium, someone had asked, is there a limit on how many short rests you can take in a day, or is it up to the DM? This is the comments that officially answered comments by Jeremy Crawford, lead rule designer of Dungeons & Dragons. 5th edition, he says, the only hard limit on the number of short rests you can take is the number of hours in a day. In practice, you're also limited by time, pressures in the story, and foes interrupting, right? A short rest is an hour-long rest where you do light light activity, or you just actually rest. So you can take as many as you want, according to this. The book is anticipating you taking at least 2 in a regular adventuring day. Now, I went through to look back in Xanathar's guide, right, because they did updated things on how to design encounters and stuff. So I wanted to go and read through Xanathar's guide to see if they changed anything about this concept of the adventuring day or the amount of encounters that you have. So in the back of Xanathar's, they have the section for shared campaigns, which is largely Adventures League stuff, is how to design it. So it says typically adventures in a shared campaign are designed to take 2 or 4 hours, which is true if you play in Adventure League modules, like pre-written, not hardcover campaigns in Adventures League, but actual modules. They're usually either 2 or 4 hour modules. And each hour of play, they say assume the characters can complete the following: 3 or 4 simple combat encounters, or 2 complex ones, 3 or 4 scenes involving significant exploration or social interaction. So even right there, they're saying in a 2 or 4 hour game session of organized play, 3 to 4 simple combat encounters or 2 complex ones on top of 3 or 4 scenes involving exploration and social interaction. So this sort of continues on that concept of the idea of the adventuring day. According to the books that tell you how to run this stuff, they're expecting you to pack things with a lot of encounters. Obviously, you're going to change that for your table if your players aren't really big fans of combat, or the other way if they really are. And then I also checked the Dungeon Master's Tools section for developing encounters at the beginning of Xanathar's Guide to see if it had anything under the encounter building section to tell you more. And it basically says these are just alternatives to creating encounters in Chapter 3 of the DMG. It doesn't actually give you anything about how many encounters they should interact. It just gives you additional information to decide the size of the encounter and then how to give you kind of quick ideas to take a solo monster, right? And how many characters in the party. So at first level, they're saying solo monster challenge rating, character levels first. With 4 characters, they can take on 1 challenge rating, 1 monster. That's kind of how everything is balanced, and it just sort of gives you more breakdowns of all of that, and how to choose different monsters, and multiple monsters, and things like that. But it's just one of those things that's, and it's come up a bunch over, I see it on Twitter all the time, where people have not, when's the last time you read the Dungeon Master's Guide, to discuss different parts of it, like things you may have forgotten and sections you want to. And I will say that I did see a panel, some of my friends ran a panel of this at PAX Unplugged, where they basically went, they called it Forgotten Core, I think was the name, where they started reading, they were going through and talking about things you may have forgotten that are contained in the Dungeon Master's Guide, useful tools. But that was only a panel at a convention. I have a more accessible platform here, so if you guys are interested on more unique things that may be contained in the Dungeon Master's Guide or other rule books for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that are interesting, are useful, you haven't seen, or maybe you just flat out forgot and you'd like to see coverage of them, like some of the more interesting optional rules that exist that people forget about, I can definitely do videos on those if you're interested. I don't really know what I'm going to call this kind of video or if it becomes a series, the series. But I just wanted to bring this up about the concept of short rests. On a typical adventuring day, they're expecting you to get into 6 to 8 encounters, combat encounters, and anticipating because of that, you're going to get at least 2 short rests in the day. So, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting, and it's been stirring around in my mind since I made that Dragonborn video, and I wanted to, bring it up to educate you guys and let you know what I thought. So what do you guys think about this concept? Does 6 to 8 encounters in a day sound ridiculous to you? Does 2 short rests in a day sound ridiculous to you? I'm curious what you think. Do you like this concept? Have you even looked at the adventuring day concept in the books? I don't even know. I don't think it comes up too often. And as someone who runs a homebrew campaign, I often think to myself, is there something I forgot? Like, should I reread the DMG? Is there like sections about designing encounters and all this other stuff that I probably forgot over time that I should go back and revisit so I make sure I'm giving my players the best experience possible? Because I'll tell you, when I first ran my first homebrew campaign on stream 4 years ago, I felt like the characters and the players were more invested in everything, and I'm still trying to recapture that magic, and I don't know if that was just a lot of their first campaign and that's why, or did I just know something better about how to run things back then than I do now? So anyway, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. We broke 13,500 at this point. We're kind of on track almost to hit 15,000 by the end of the month, which would be bananas. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. That's how that works, right? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And stay tuned for more content and coverage of the new books and new announcements as those come out. More Fixing It coming soon. I'm hoping to get back into my DM's Guild reviews. I have a list of thousands of DM's Guild rather, modules to review, and I'd like to do that. There's also going to be some new campaigns and stuff starting up on the Twitch channel, and the possibility, which I alluded to in a post on the community tab here, of the idea of me activating YouTube memberships. And I'll make a separate video on that just to make it more relevant for you guys, possibly to add new content. You wouldn't lose anything that you're already getting if I do that. It would just be to give you guys additional content and maybe some more one-on-one time with me. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.